It is Friday, May 3rd, 2024. Welcome. And we are extremely lucky today because this is the best day ever to drive growth for your business. And why is that? Because it's the only day we can control. We can't do anything about yesterday, and who knows about tomorrow. So let's make it happen today. Of course, as always, I'm talking about growth and marketing. We have a number of interesting topics to talk about today. First up, Adam Cartlidge reminds us that share of search impacts share of market. And this is a very important topic to talk about because there's so much discussion about there about how we measure our dark social or dark funnel, whatever it is. And this is a way to do it, and anyone can do it, and it's free. And so, what next? We'll share some videos from Binet, who explains share of search and how to do it. So, that should be a great discussion. Then we dive into some of the controversy raised by Scott Galloway when he's talking about brands should be investing in their product and not advertising. And then finally, we wrap up. Chris Toy shares an update on something he shared a couple of weeks ago, which is a couple of CMOs he talked to said data driven is a false god. So he has an update on that, which should be, again, a very interesting discussion. So let's get started. Let's take a look at this post by Adam Cartlidge. And he is VP of Marketing at Farfetch. And he starts by saying, did you know consumers searching for brands by name might predict future market share? Research suggests a high share of brand search, think Google searches for specific brands, correlates with future brand dominance. So this is an absolutely critical point because there's so much discussion out there about how do we measure whether our investment in brand is actually resulting in growth. And so you hear a lot of talk around like dark social or dark funnel, and that's because there's channels out there that don't have attribution. And so it's not as important that we measure those individual channel contributions right now. It's understanding whether the efforts we're putting in are actually increasing the number of brand searches we have, increasing our brand awareness. And does that increase in brand awareness actually impact growth? And so his point here is that there is actually a methodology that we can all use that's really quite simple, and that Binet shows has an impact on growth. And so, like I said, this is just such a key point that there is actually a tool available that, again, won't measure the performance of specific channels, but whether our investment in brand through these different channels, and we all know what they are, it could be social media events, advertising, whether those are actually increasing your number of brand searches, and that will have an impact on growth. So let's get into the detail about how this is actually done. All right, here's a video by Binet.
Over the last 30 years or so, working in this field, I found that the relationship between conventional brand tracking metrics and actual purchase and buying behavior is often surprisingly weak.
So that's an absolutely critical point, is that the traditional ways of measuring brand awareness through surveys and he says he hasn't found a relationship between measuring the brand awareness through those traditional methods and actual growth. And so it's really important because the reason for that is because people don't necessarily do what they say. And so you're getting people's opinions, but do they actually take action on it? And so since that's not an effective way of measuring brand awareness and its impact on growth, he's coming up with another way.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm always on the lookout for new ways to track brands and advertising. And in particular, over the last few years, looking at ways of tracking brands and advertising based on what people do rather than what they say, and specifically what they do online. And that, of course, is where Google comes in. I mean,
my favorite part of this video is coming up right now.
Everybody knows that Google's a powerful tool for marketing, but I think it's now becoming much more realized that Google is potentially a rich source of data for market research, data on what people are doing, to some extent on what they're thinking and feeling, and crucially, obviously, on what they're going to buy and what their intentions are.
In fact, Google likes to... Can I just interrupt for a moment? Not everybody can see your screen.
Ah, okay. Right, let me just...
All right, so no one wants to be the person who says you have to share your screen, but it is good to see that I am not the only one who struggles with that. All right, so what does share of search, how do you measure share of search? And let's take a look at this video. He walks us through how we actually do it, and it's remarkably simple.
I mean share of organic search queries. We're looking not at what people do in the way of search advertising, we're looking at what ordinary people are looking for online. The way that we do this for a brand is as follows. This is what the metric looks like. Share of searches is the searches for your brand as a percentage of all searches for all brands in your category. So how do you get that? The first thing you need to do is to gather up historic data on searches for different brands in the category over time. An easy way to get some data on that is to use Google Trends.
Okay, so he's proposing that we measure share of searches, and you just look at the number of searches for your brand divided by the number of searches for all brands in the category. And he's proposing that we use Google Trends. There's actually a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do that, is if you have access to a Google Ads account, there's tools in there that will actually let you enter in all the queries that you're interested in. So you can put in all the brands, and it will say the level of search volume by month. So that's what it is. I mean, that's really straightforward. And the nice thing about it is it's understandable for everyone, and everyone can do this for free. There's no cost as long as you have access to the Google Ads platform or Google Trends. So there's no cost to it. But this raises a question: is it actually meaningful? So let's move on in the video.
It means that the two metrics mostly tend to move together for most brands most of the time. So here's an example. I showed this in my previous presentation. This is from mobile telephony, and what we see is for this brand, which is LG, there's a strong correlation between share of searches and share of market. When one goes up, the other goes up, and when one...
So that's pretty amazing when you look at how closely those track, and you can see that the share of searches, it's preceding the share of market. So which is a critical factor here.
One goes down, the other goes down. But crucially, one leads the other. So what we see here is that if you look closely at the two charts, the two lines, the blue line leads the orangey line by about 6 months. And that's the bit that's really interesting. So in this particular case, share of searches for LG was rising over time, and then share of market was following it up. And then around about the middle of the chart there, share of searches began to drop for LG, and then about 6 months later, share of market began to fall down after it.
So wouldn't it be amazing if you were able to have a metric with a 6-month lead indicator of what's going to happen to your growth? I mean, that's really, really insightful if it holds true for your industry as well in your company.
And that's obviously very exciting because it suggests, as I say, that share of searches is a leading indicator and might have some predictive power under some circumstances. Now, one way of...
And so now the question is, does this apply to multiple brands? And so let's take a look.
So what we did was we looked at the 23 brands in the car market, and we found very similar relationships for 22 of the 23 brands. These little charts show you some of the examples of that ethos versus growth. And what I've done here is I've shifted the two lines so that they're over time, so that they're in sync with one another. So you can just visually see this relationship between ethos and growth. It works for 22 out of 23 brands in the car market, and for 10 out of 12 brands in the mobile market.
So that's really interesting data. And so it's definitely something worth investigating for your company, is taking a look at your share of searches and understanding where you are relative to other brands. Let's take a look at this post from Neil Krikul. he says, people seem to be having a go at Prof G Scott Galloway for making a statement on John Evans' Uncensored CMO podcast that brand advertising is dead. And if you follow marketing chatter out there, you can't miss this. A lot of people are up in arms over the idea and sharing data showing the contrary. But anyway, he goes on to say, and this is where Prof G pointed out that big firms are shifting more budget into their product R&D, and this is true as shown in the graph below. And this is Amazon's graph, R&D, and then advertising. Even from a big advertiser like Amazon, the increased ratio between the two is significant. They know that investing in product development is such a much more sustainable path to growth. Coincidentally, in the same week, Mark Ritson also quoted Elon Musk to make a point on product being the most important P. And they're both right. Spend less time doing other stuff and more time trying to make your product as amazing as possible. But I think the important thing here is that for companies like Amazon and Tesla is that product and promotion are really blending together. You think about the Tesla superchargers and you see them everywhere. And they're like presented in such a way that looks like they're promoting Tesla. I mean, they look good. And they didn't need to be that to meet the need of Tesla customers. They could have just been a plug somewhere. But instead, they incorporated this promotion as part of their product offering. An example to an extreme is the Cybertruck. To meet the need of truck prospects, they didn't need to have it be the Cybertruck. But Elon Musk knew that it would be a halo product that would drive awareness of Tesla if he created something that really stood out. And so the product and promotion are grouped together. And for Amazon, product, place, and promotion are all grouped together. You think about their core offering, their website. If they improve that, that could improve organic search volume. And so all these things are grouping together. So it's not in the investment in R&D, because product and promotion are tied together, isn't just an investment in the product, it's also an investment in promotion. So that's one thing that I really want to point out. And is if you're thinking about adopting strategies with your product, think about ways to utilize it for promotion. It doesn't need to be what we know in SaaS as product-led growth. There's opportunities to promote your product with promote your company within your product. That's not quite as extreme as product-led growth, but that's what these companies are doing. So it's not just moving away from advertising. They're saying we're going to invest in R&D, but we're also investing in promotion through that. All right, finally, I want to wrap up with this post from Chris Toy. My post dealing 3 hot takes from 2 CMOs I spoke to last week caught a lot of attention and questions from marketers. So I went back to ask them for more detail. And the thing that really got people talking is that the CMO said data-driven is a false god. And they went through and said, our point isn't that data is bad, but it's just you can't be 100% data-driven, which I completely agree with. If everyone knows me, I think there's pillars of marketing, fundamentals of marketing that should not be data-driven. They don't need to be tested into. But I think as marketers, we can't say things like data-driven is a false god because it makes us look unserious. I mean, if my doctor said to me, data-driven is a false god, that they wouldn't be my doctor very long. I don't want their only decisions to be based on data, but if they say, it's a false god or I don't believe in data, then that's an issue. I want them to use data to figure out how to treat me, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And definitely if I'm driving over a bridge and I heard the engineer said data-driven is a false god, I would not be driving over that bridge. And so that's the point, is like, let's not say things like data-driven is a false god because it makes us look unserious. We really need, so we shouldn't be 100% data-driven, but we also need to make sure that we, make people aware that marketing is driven by data. It's just true. I shared a bunch of, the videos I shared from Binet showed how data has a powerful function within marketing. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.